what is masking phenomena? How to use it to reveal non-conscious processing in healthy adults. So masking phenomena occurs when target stimulus becomes difficult to experience because of the spatial or temporal interactions between the target and its context. Context in space or context in time, okay? And usually it's both. The nature of interaction between some stimulus, such as target and the context, is one of the fundamental properties of our phenomenology. Okay? Usually we just can't, independently perceive something out, completely devoid of the context or independent of the context. And this interaction, sometimes called integration, is one of the essential, really essential properties of any of our phenomenology. And also, it's interesting, but it occurs in any modality of consciousness: feeling, and touch, and vision, audition, and smell, and also taste. But also in terms of cognitive kind of conscious experience as well, like thinking and also preference and so on. All right. So just to start with, let's go to this website constructed by Michael Bach. This is quite an interesting website that has collected 144 different kind of visual illusions. And if you are interested, I strongly recommend to go into this website by clicking this slide. And then in particular, what I want to see is this grid masking demo. Here you see some kind of vertical black and white stripes. And behind that, you may already see something, but many of you probably don't see what's behind that. And then what I want you to do is to move your head like this way, or this way, or move your eyes left and right, or up and down. Did you see anything? And if you know, then I'll do this shake button. If you go this website, you can try that by yourself. But this shaking hopefully reveals something. And if you are still not sure, then what I can do is to change this, transparency of the grid, the grating, or the width of this, grating, either wider or narrower. And when I make it very, very narrow, then now you probably see much easier, especially if you shake your head, that there is a cat, right? And then I'll just do it by lowering the alpha value. Okay, so when the grid is very transparent, then it's totally easy to see. So now moving it back again to highly masked kind of situation. So this is the situation of the masking where the target stimulus of the cat is masked by the interference of the superimposed grid. But interestingly, when you move your eyes or shake this thing, then it becomes visible. The reason is most likely that shaking or moving your head specifically impairs the power of the mask, but not really diminishing this target visibility. So this kind of thing is kind of interesting. So as I said, normally phenomenology is composed of many different kind of spatial and temporary interacting element, but some properties or some technique can, in a sense, decrease the power of either target or mask. All right. And I recommend you to change, check and try different kind of things in this website. It's quite fun. All right. So also, I recommend you to go to the backward masking video here if you haven't actually tried it by yourself, because it turns out that, on the video recording, it probably doesn't work. That, you probably don't see the proper backward masking on the lecture video, but on the YouTube, especially with your high frequency monitor, refresh rate monitor, then you should be able to see it really clear. All right. So now let's talk about the particular type of the masking. So this is the, I'm going to focus on the study done by the Stanislas Dehaene, who is a very important person in the consciousness research field. And he published the following study in 2001 in Nature Neuroscience. What he did is to use the so-called sandwich masking. And here, the time goes from bottom to the top. So initially, what you'll see is jumble of the things for 71 milliseconds. Okay. So this is shown on the screen, and then another 71 milliseconds. You see a different types of the run jumble, and then it's followed by it's actually initially this stimulus is presented by 70 milliseconds or something like that, and then blank is followed for 71 milliseconds, and then right after that they showed that some kind of word like lion, in all capital letters for 29 milliseconds, or nothing for 29 milliseconds, followed by another blank 71 milliseconds, and then another jumble of the mask. And then this mask is called sandwich masking because it masks in forward in time and also backward in time as well. And the demo that I showed was backward masking only from the back in time, but this one used both forward and backward masking. Okay, so it's quite a strong type of the masking. However, this situation, as you see, is depicted as a visible. That's visible because the masking is not working. The reason is that there is this, buffer of blank period here, before and after. So the masking doesn't work in this case. However, the mask, strongly masked situation, there they present this mask right after this blank. So the mask is swapped in terms of position here, and also backward mask as well. And because of this, backward mask and also forward mask is a temporary more proximity in both masked stimulus or blank. And here, you don't see the word at all. That's the idea. Okay. So this is a visual masking paradigm. And upshot of this study is that they used fMRI and EEG together with 4 different kinds of the behavioral measures, and plus one, sort of supplementary, experiment. And I'll go through each of these, in care one by one. Let's go first 2 measures of the behavioral experiment. So here they presented this, masking, streaming of the letters or words, either in the visible situation or masked situation or blank situation, nothing. Okay, and then in the randomized order and with some interval. And then what they asked was either naming the word, like when they saw it, they report some kind of word. And then this was tested under the visible or masked situation. And in the case of the visible condition, in many cases, like above 80% of the words can be correctly named, like I saw lion and so on. But in the case of a masked situation, almost 0%. So even if it was, it presented, what was it? Not the lion. Note, you couldn't actually report it. That's the thing. And then another thing is that the detection task. So instead of asking, naming the word, if you just ask, if you saw face or not, And then they would say that, oh yes, I saw the words 90% in the case of visible situation, but almost 0% for masked and blank situation. So here, this is all 0% false alarm for here, and then this is 0% hit. Okay, in the signal detection terminology. All right. Next, another two types of the behavioral measures. One is that so those two experiments were done after the fMRI imaging experiment. One is that so again they included the visible and the masks and the distractor situation. The distractor is the one that was the words that was never used in either the visible or masked situation of the fMRI experiment. So it serves as a baseline. And then what they did was a recognition memory test. So after the experiment, they were shown one word at a time, and then subject was asked to say either they saw that in the previous fMRI session or not. And then for those that they saw in the visible situation, they reported, oh yes, I saw it, in the 85%. But in the case of the mask situation, they also reported like up above 5% time. But this is also very similar to the distractor situation where they didn't see the word, but they still said that, oh, I saw it. So this means that there are a little bit of the false alarm and false alarm here. And this is almost equivalent to the hit for the mask situation. And then another important task that they did was the forced choice experiment. So here, under the masking situation only, so they asked whether the presented word was either word A, like lion, or B, like let's say, stare or something like that, And then you are asked to choose one of them. So that's a two alternative false choice under the masking. Okay, and then the performance was 50%, and that's indicative of invisibility. Makes sense. All right, so so just to recap what we learned using the signal detection theory, I'll try to explain this. Okay, so first of all, in the case of the stimulus detection paradigm, visible versus blank, almost like 90% hit versus 0% false alarm. So that corresponds to this point. And that's almost like D prime of 4, okay? And a very sharp ROC curve. Next. Then the similar thing can be also computed by word naming situation as well. But the word naming, we didn't have a blank type situation, so we can't use a receiver operated characteristic. And next, a recognition memory. In the case of visible versus distractors gives us this 85% hit versus 5% false alarm. So that makes this blue thing towards a little bit decline towards inner curve, and that's a green curve, D prime of 3 roughly. Next, looking at the stimulus detection paradigm, because people said no, I saw it in both masked and also blank situation, both hit and false alarm is 0%. So it's kind of ambiguous. It's the bottom left here. And then word naming you can't use again. And then in the case of the recognition memory, because people said for yes for both masked and the distractors, then here we can plot it at 5% each, and then that's consistent with this D prime 0 line. So this is a good evidence to say that D prime 0 complete chance situation. And then final behavior of the false choice is a 50-50%. So that corresponds to 50% false alarm, 50% hits, and that's exactly on this diagonal. So it's all consistent with D prime 0 for the mask situation. Very beautiful result. All right. So in summary, depending on the context in space or time, some stimuli become difficult or impossible to experience. And this phenomenon is called masking. And various behavioral tests of visibility can objectively establish visible and masked conditions. And that's the one that, the Haynes study uses 4 different protocols to establish this. Very nice, clean study. And then using signal detection theory, we can quantify the degree of the visibility as well. And then the question becomes this, is masked stimulus similar to blind sight phenomenology? What is happening in the brain when we are shown masked stimuli? That's the next question. Okay.